Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here with David, and we are talking about worthiness, spiritually filling up. And this is a great topic, not only any week of the year, but specifically this week, as we're in the midst of the week of Pisces. It's typically a Pisces issue that need to justify one's existence by serving, being, providing value, and I hesitate to use the phrase people pleasing, but the need for that energetic reassurance that we are loved, valued, and wanted. That may be coming up for many of us this month, and specifically this week, we have the opportunity to shift the source of our sense of worthiness from external sources to internal sources. And we want to focus our time today in this week's episode on understanding why it's such a challenge and how to circumvent the opportunities or the obstacles that prevent us from truly feeling a sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on anything outside of ourselves. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I and our guests aim to provide our listeners with practical and powerful tools to navigate the coming 7 days from the teachings of Kabbalah. And we aim to provide wisdom and tools that you can use any time, any week of the year, any situation whatsoever. And for David and I, who are both Pisces, this is a topic that we've worked on and we continue to work on. The truth is, it's something at the root of human existence that is within all of our spiritual DNA to seek that sense of worth and sense of purpose and fulfilling that purpose. And that's one of the reasons people eventually embrace the spiritual path, is because they find that the external material stuff isn't quite as fulfilling or doesn't sustain their sense of self-worth the way that maybe growing up we think it might. And David, I wonder if you can share why that is or where it comes from.
Well, you started off by saying something powerful. I just want to reiterate it, which is this whole idea that Pisces, but all of us to some extent, we have this desire and yearning to achieve and obtain in this physical world. And as a result, we could be motivated by trying to establish our own self-worth through that. But somehow, no matter what you do, when you achieve, it affects how you feel about yourself. So we know that this is better than not doing anything at all, staying home and crying and being sad. Going out and making a living or adding value to the world, even if it's for the wrong intention, because you feel low self-worth and you want self-worth, it's better than not doing anything at all. But what are we saying is even higher than that? What is the approach that people should take so that they're not left feeling just as empty? They're not left feeling that their blessings need to be unwound because there's unresolved issues and trauma. When you lean on your career for your self-worth, then you unravel your career in order to deal with it. We've seen this before. What is a suggestion that we're basically trying to make to our audience?
Well, I think we don't realize how the reason we experience ups and downs in our life is because our worth is tied up within something that's not in our control. So if it happens to be your career, when things are great and you're in the zone and you feel like things are working and going according to your plan and your timeline and your expectations, you feel great. You feel in control. You feel like you're making a difference. And when things aren't under your control or don't go according to your plan, your life falls apart.
So you're basically saying the spiritual goal of life is to eventually depend on something for your happiness that you actually have complete control over. Because if it's on the outside, you do not have that control.
It's not only happiness, though. There's so many people out there, I know that I've worked with, I'm sure you've heard this many times also, that their performance or their self-worth is tied into their performance.
Correct.
When they feel like they're a good parent, they feel good about themselves. Correct. And they feel good in all the other areas of their life. When they close a deal, and there's cash in the bank, they feel powerful, they feel successful, they feel worthy.
Sure.
When the opposite is happening, when kids are struggling or the money's tight, they feel powerless and disempowered. So I think it's even more than just when things are good, I feel good. When things are bad, I feel bad. But my personal worth is tied up in my material worth or
Correct.
my ability to produce.
But we also know, we've shared this before, and our teachers have said it, if you bring the result, it means you did something right. And if you do not bring the result, it means there's something wrong with the way you're working or your consciousness. So it's interesting because on one hand, we are saying, hey, look, whether it works out or not, that shouldn't affect who you are and what you think about yourself and how you feel about yourself. On the other hand, we're saying, hey, if it didn't work out, you need to really look inside yourself. Something needs to be optimized. And I think that this is the struggle because both answers are correct. On one hand, your happiness and your consciousness and the way you show up to the world should not change if the result is good or bad. And we've seen this, the most successful people have consistency in their work and consistency in their mindset, whether the result is there or not. And the more you can detach yourself from the result, you'll actually have infinite strength to do whatever work you're trying to do in whatever field you're trying to do it. On the other hand, we're also asking our audience and ourselves, hey, can you receive the feedback from the world? When the world is not working out for you, you need to change something. When the world is working out for you, there's lessons to learn, but be careful not to have too much ego. So we are asking people to learn, but not at the expense of saying there's something severely wrong with me. And as a result, I'm not a good person, or I have guilt and fear and shame. Because I think that's the cycle that people fall into. If the result happens, it means I'm a good person. And if the result doesn't happen, it means I'm a bad person. And that's where I think majority of the world is stuck in. Drop the mic. I just dropped my phone.
Your phone is in shock. So what do we do with that? What's the practical advice for someone? I mean, I met two people just in this past week. One who came to me and said, I'm good looking. I make a good living. Why aren't I with my mate?
Yes.
And another person who came to me and said, I'm young, I'm healthy, I have a good heart. Why don't I have kids yet?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt in their questions, it wasn't a what am I doing wrong? What do I need to be doing? It was more, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm. So the question was actually not the question we should be asking, is what you're saying.
Well, I feel that those individuals already on a spiritual path are looking inward versus,
Yes.
I'm not at the right bars, I'm not in the right apps, I'm not, when we're already turned inward and being accountable for consciousness and mindset, I think that there is a conversation that needs to take place about how our worth is tied into the whole reason we're coming to the planet. Why are we alive right now?
Yeah.
It's because we have something to provide, not only for ourselves, but to the collective, but also that idea that in the scheme of tikkun, or the soul's work, one of the things we're here to correct is worthiness.
Right.
So
here's an answer. An answer that the Kabbalists share is for each one of us to get to this place where we know how to operate from the point of view of the light and the point of view of the vessel. And Rav Ashlag, the founder of the Kabbalah Centre, speaks about this in length in his deeper writings. Throughout the day, I need to be able to shift between two modes. The first mode is, from the point of view of the light of the Creator, there is no tikkun process. There is no negativity. The Creator doesn't see, from the Creator's point of view, time, space, and motion. There is no past and there is no future. There is no time at all. From the Creator's point of view, there's also perfection, meaning someone we would consider the worst person in the world versus maybe the person who is has an incredible character and is heroic, and we extol this person. In the eyes of the Creator, they look no different. So there is no change, there is no difference. It's all perfect from the eyes of the Creator. From the eyes of the vessel, the souls of humanity, there is time, there's a past, there's a future, there's good, there's bad, there's up, there's down, there's left, there's right, there's light and there's darkness. And on one hand, we are asked to work from the point of view of the vessel, because if I see darkness, then it will motivate me to reveal light. So I need to work. We talk about this in Kabbalah 1, the whole concept of bread of shame. The bread of shame means the feeling of shame that all the souls of humanity had because they couldn't earn the light. How do you remove the bread of shame? Well, there's spiritual work that needs to be done to become similar to the qualities of the light of the Creator. And that's how you remove the shame, and the light comes in and the miracles happen. That was a short way of kind of giving several hours of a
30
lesson.
seconds.
Yeah, that was a 30-second version of what you will learn in Kabbalah 1, which anybody who's listening, you will get so much out of taking Kabbalah 1 because it will explain to you the whole system of life, and you'll be able to understand these podcasts even better. So I've learned I need to be in these two places of consciousness at the same time. Now, when do I do each? When I'm going through a tough time, when there's darkness, when there's pain, I need to think from the point of view of the Creator, which is everything's perfect. There's no past, there's no present, there's no future. Everything is one. And I'm going to emit this vibration of I already have everything I need to the world when the lack overcomes me. So this consciousness, when I employ this consciousness that everything is good in difficult times, is actually how you transform. When things are great and peaceful and you're feeling good, this is the time to work. This is the time to choose to dig in. This is the time to examine our lives and see where can improvement be made. If you try to improve from a place of lack, there's going to be chaos. And when things are perfect and you just basically say, yeah, things are perfect, and you do nothing more to build a new vessel or to transform or to look inside, there's also chaos there. So it's about swapping the two. We talk about it, this whole concept, the King David talks about praising and praying. Life is only about praising or praying. When everyone's going through a tough time, they pray. And when they're going through a good time, they praise. They say, oh, amazing. Spiritual work is to flip it. When you're going through a tough time, you praise. And when you're going through an amazing time, that's when you pray. That's when you start asking for help. That's when you start looking deep inside. That's when you start asking for more strength. And it's not intuitive for all of us. We do the opposite. But spiritual work is to flip it. Praise when it's going through when you're going through a tough time, and pray when you feel the seas are calm.
So then I wonder, what is it about if what we're doing, or if our external lives are a feedback mechanism for if we're in the right place, if our mindset is in the right space, but we're also not supposed to be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
Let's say if you're in an industry where your value is your value to the company is how much you produce, or I don't know. I had an experience where one Sunday I messed up everybody's plans. I got all the timing backwards. We were late to everything we were going to, and honestly, it felt pretty crummy. I sat most of the day trying to figure out, how to bounce back from feeling like worst mom of the year award. So if on one hand, I'm perfect, how am I making so many mistakes? And if my value isn't connected to my paycheck or my commission, let's put it better that way, right? If you have a solid paycheck, maybe this is less of a struggle for you. It's more about appreciation and acknowledgement rather than dollars. But a lot of people out there are making money that's dependent on what they bring or what they produce. So that can be a very confusing pattern. And what ends up happening that I see, not only in the realm of parenting, but also work, is people are overachieving, like working themselves dead, basically, because they feel that they're not doing enough.
Yes. So what are we trying to solve for? That's really the question.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, when I'm not reactive and I can be conscious and mindful about what's going on within me, I remember the fact, and this again goes back to a deeper Kabbalistic secret about how humanity came to exist, how creation started, and that was basically the original soul of humanity, whose code name is Adam and Eve. They were asked to do something. They quote unquote failed. And the result is this world of struggle that we live in most of the time, which explains what David said before, why we need to be in that place of spiritual earning, why we need to be making an effort. We decided that we need to be in charge of how we reveal light, when we reveal light, where we reveal light. And the real disconnect that happened in that whole Adam and Eve story is not simply, and that's something else that Rav Ashlag explains, they were destined to eat the fruit. The fact that it looked forbidden or it sounded forbidden was part of the setup, but they were always going to, they needed to taste from the fruit in order for creation to take place, in order for us to be here having a podcast in 2024. However, the mark that they missed was that they blamed themselves. So at the root of our DNA, all of humanity is struggling with blame, shame, and guilt. And
because they believe this is a tool by which to transform, and it never is.
But that's the paradox, is that there is a fine line between accountability and guilt.
Yeah.
Guilt is, or I guess guilt and accountability can be similar, but shame and blame are, I'm damaged and I'm unsalvageable, whereas accountability is, I did something and therefore I can undo it, or I can heal it, or I can transform it.
Right. Everyone agrees, and we all feel it internally, our drive towards perfecting our soul. Like, everybody wants the same thing.
But it's important that everybody understands that's good. That part of it is the good part.
That's the good part.
Right.
That's the good part. That's our birthright. Like, that's what we came to this world to do.
And we will achieve it.
And the opponent, the negative side, knows that we're not going to let go of this mission. We feel it deep inside of us. Even non-spiritual people feel this desire to strive towards some form of perfection. It's like something is moving them and pushing them deep inside their soul. So what the negative side does so well, and very crafty of him to do so, is, hey, look, I know you're going to try to be perfect, so let me give you some tools of how I think you should change. And it's called guilt, shame, and fear. And so majority of the world has learned, hey, listen, if for me to really be the better version of myself, I need to punish myself. I need to reprimand myself. That could have been handed down via religion. That could have been handed down via parents or just different societal norms. But the point is that the opponent has found a way to infiltrate our society, our religions, our families, by saying, hey, look, the harder you are on yourself, the more successful you will be, the more spiritual you'll be, the better parent you'll be. And this is emphatically wrong. There's nothing, it is completely a ploy from the other side. And actually, all the blessings that you reveal through guilt, shame, and fear actually end up going to the negative side and causing more chaos later, even if it looks like it's working initially. So what do we replace that with? Can you push yourself and grow yourself, but from a place of empowerment, from a place of inspiration, from a place of, hey, look, I am great just the way I am, just the way the Creator made me, and I desire to evolve myself to whatever the Creator wants me to be. Just because you're evolving doesn't mean where you were before was imperfect or problematic. Can you evolve from perfection to perfection? That's essentially what we're trying to say. You're perfect now, and you'll be perfect later when you evolve. But if I evolve, it means I wasn't perfect. No, that is what each one of us needs to reconcile. And it's very spiritual. It takes a lot of spiritual work to reconcile that concept. I'm perfect the way I am, and I want to evolve into perfection.
Well, I think people get confused with that because they equate imperfection with inadequacy.
Correct.
So part of our reprogramming needs to be, just because I'm not perfect yet doesn't mean I'm inadequate, doesn't mean I'm damaged or faulty or missing the mark. That's where the perfection tango is. And in that striving for perfection, or let's say evolving toward perfection, the Kabbalists remind us again and again and again, our light is revealed in the evolving, not in the stasis of perfection.
Right.
We have this perception that once I stop being needy, selfish, stubborn, all those things we're working to transform, then I'll be perfect, then everything will be good, then I won't suffer anymore.
Correct. That's not true. Yeah.
The light itself is revealed in the struggle. So as you evolve toward the next version of yourself as the more improved parent or more value-adding employee, we always say it, it's so cliche, but it's so true. The purpose is the process. It's not the destination. And we have the programming that we need that destination for a reason. Otherwise, we'd sit on our butts all day. And like you said, we wouldn't do anything. We just say, woe is me. The striving for perfection is important, but we need to realize that the light is in the striving and not the perfection.
And in fact, it was perfect the whole time.
Right.
Remember, these are the 2 points, because I need to strive and work and go through the process. That's from the point of view of the vessel. And as soon as I'm starting to feel a lower vibration, my energy is going down, I'm feeling lack, I need to go back to, it was perfect the whole time. This is also a spiritual law where it says, if a person makes a mistake or a person falls, a person goes through some kind of negativity, after the fact, you need to believe that the Creator forced you to do it and you were going to do it this whole time and you had no free will.
Same way as Adam and Eve. There was no free will there.
After the fact.
After the fact, it was exactly, if they wouldn't have done it, all of this amazing goodness that exists in the world wouldn't have happened, including you. So it had to happen.
Had to happen. Now, are we saying to everyone, before it happens, it's probably going to happen, and it's going to happen anyway, so you have no free will, just do whatever you want?
Just take your hands off the wheel.
Yeah, just do whatever you want? No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying before it happens, you have to 100% believe you have free will, and you must go through the spiritual process of avoiding negativity. But after it happens, you need to know, and you tried everything in your power not to make it happen. After it happens, it means the Creator wanted it to happen. Again, it's very hard to hold the space for both those bits of consciousness, but that is essential for our evolution. And it's interesting. I read a story recently of a great Kabbalist, a seer of Lublin, and it says that he lived several hundred years ago, and he was the greatest of his generation at the time. And his students saw that one of the things he used to do is spend time with someone who was not spiritual, did no spiritual work. In fact, constantly did negative actions. This person was a very negative person, but this very high soul, the seer of Lublin, would spend a lot of time with him, would laugh with him, would joke with him. He loved this company. So his students were bothered by this and said to him, he said, we don't understand. Like, we're doing the spiritual work, but you choose to spend most of your time with this one person who actually outwardly is creating so much negativity. So the seer of Lublin tells his students, yes, he does no spiritual work and he's doing all these negative actions. I see that. But the joy he has and the love for life that he has, the lack of sadness, the lack of guilt and shame, he loves that he's a negative person and he's 100%, okay with it. All the angels follow him around. And you all, even though you're doing the work, there's so much guilt, shame, fear, and the heaviness that the angels can't be around you. So, yes, even though he's a negative person, the fact that his consciousness is so simple and he lives with joy and happiness actually puts him in many ways on a higher level than those doing the work, but from a place of heaviness and internal struggle all the time and beating yourself up.
I think that internal struggle that he lacked that he was praised for lacking is really where we fall the hardest.
Right.
We have all these stories that we tell ourselves about how things should be and where we should be and how, comparing ourselves to others, look at where they're at. Why don't I work harder than they do? I'm a better person than they are. Why don't I have what they have? A lot of that suffering comes from the stories we tell ourselves. And the reality, I years ago, it's such a funny thing to remember right now. I shared it with someone not long ago as well. I had a friend who, obviously this is not their issue. And they said to me, it must have been like 20 years ago. They said to me, if you are such a mess, right? If you are so unsalvageable, why do you even believe your thoughts? Like, if you're such a zero, why do you trust what you're thinking? And that to me was this pivotal moment of realizing that I am really here to be an instrument. I am here to be, we use the word channel so many times, I don't know that it resonates with people. It's like, I am simply a container, and the container doesn't have to be perfect. What's perfect is what's within it. And what's within me is the light of the creator. And I don't really need to worry about much else. Like that's what I know it sounds so out there and esoteric, but it really is so simple. It's that I just want the light to flow through me, and I don't need to worry about the rest. It's, maybe I need to break it down a little bit better, but we do on one hand in the physical reality need to work on skills and knowledge, getting to be at the top of our game on a technical level, reading the parenting books, reading the industry, disruptors and what they're doing, like really trying to up the ante in the 1%. But at the same time, that duality of I have to work on myself, but I'm already perfect. The I'm already perfect comes from the fact that everything that I have to offer anyway comes from the light of the creator. So once it's said and done, I know that it was perfect, because I think it was last year that Michael Berg shared this idea in a lecture. After the fact, I need to know that my day would have been, everybody I touched and everybody that I helped and all the good that I did, I could have stayed in bed all day and it would have happened that way anyways. And that idea, I think that that's a mindfulness practice to get us to a state of detachment where we're no longer looking at the results. We're only connected to how we feel.
Yeah.
And that to me is the real secret here, that if you are busy with the results, we got there on time, we made our quota, my kids got A's, my kid is the, basketball champ on the team, whatever it is, if we're looking to the external to know we're okay, we're never going to be okay. If we look within and we check, am I growing? Am I transforming? Did I respond today better than I would have a year ago to the same circumstances? That's where our worthiness needs to come from the fact that we are making effort, not the fact that we have arrived.
And we'll close with this. To make it so simple, what's the takeaway for everyone is, look, do whatever you're going to do. Work however you're going to work. Eventually, each person will get to this place where they're going to be exhausted and realize, why am I doing all of this? Because it's not actually bringing me to the destination I want. The next consciousness that comes in after that is, I'm just going to choose to be happy, regardless of what happens on the outside, because it's exhausting trying to depend on the outside. So the takeaway for all of us is, do what you're going to do. Work the way you're going to work. Be the best at whatever it is. However, can you just do it without fear? Can you just do it without worry? Can you do it without thinking about the future and carrying the heaviness of the past? Can you be as present as possible in everything that you do? This is really a simpler way of trying to live the consciousness that we're talking about. Just choose to be happy. It sucks, just choose to be happy. It's not going your way, just choose to be happy. You're uncertain about how it's going to unfold, just choose to be happy. And yes, do the same work you were going to do anyways. But the consciousness and the vibration of acting like the creator while you're doing it is what aligns you with universal energy and puts you on the most direct path to miracles.
I'm just going to give you a quick 30-second visual about what David just said. Imagine, if that sounds too abstract to you, imagine you're a performer, singer, musician, maybe you're a public speaker, whatever. You perform and you run off stage before you can hear the applause. You run off stage before anybody can tell you, David, that was the best class you ever, like you literally avoid the feedback, you avoid the response, because becoming addicted to the response is where the low self-worth comes from.
Love it.
So if that's one practical thing you can do, hang up, get off the Zoom before you can hear what a wonderful presentation was. Don't, leave the playground before other parents can tell you what a patient, loving parent you are. Ditch the feedback to break the dependence on it.
Beautiful.
Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. You can send us a message through our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can find all the things we think are interesting for our listeners to know about, as well as our archives. And the donate button there on weeklyenergyboost.com gives you guys the opportunity to support our podcast, help us reach more people. And as always, we want to encourage you, if you haven't yet already, rate and review wherever you're listening. Share this episode with others, and we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.